The following production is part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of Play Some Video Games, the flagship show of the PSVG podcast network and the only gaming podcast that not only loads the dishwasher, it runs the dishwasher and then empties it and starts the whole cycle all over again. With me this week, of course, is my co-host, Lucas. Sir, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Thanks for asking. Swell. And in our ever-revolving third chair, you might know him from State of the Xbox Empire, which came out this week, or last week as you're listening to this. Nathan, sir, how's that chair working out for you? I had Lucas reupholster it just for you since he's so DIY, you know.
Well, I was going to comment on how comfortable it was. However, there is a little bit of a stain, like just right under the left leg area.
Well, Jason came back to Flux the Pose this week, so.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Makes sense. I am joined, by the way, by my ever-rotating keychain, Goofy from Kingdom Hearts 3, which a game that I would like to play, but I haven't.
Me either. I got through the Tangled world, and
that's
I
the last one I
stopped
did too.
there. I didn't even get.
That's when Apex came out for me.
Yeah, I think you're right, but we'll get to that stuff in shortly. Before we dive into the show proper, though, we do need to take a quick time out to thank our awesome Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/PSVG. Special shout outs to Coach Hulk, Edwin Callow, Devin Tyus, Chris M, Kyle Heyman, The Bonesaw, Josh Barboni, Barry Cathcart, Paul Calico, and basically everybody actually who donates even just $1 a month gets you awesome things like PSVG DLC, which episode 2 dropped last week, featuring myself, Josh the Bonesaw himself, and Kyle from Board with Video Games.
I do want to say the sequel is never as good as the original.
No, it's not. Well, Terminator 2. Just gonna leave that right there. But
Wow.
I didn't get plastered, and it's really hard to keep up with Donnie's stories. He's got me beat there, I think, for the most part. So
Dude, Donnie has lived a life.
He has lived a life. He's lived like 4 lives. So, it is what it is. But thank you everybody who does donate, though. But most of all, we thank you just for listening and hopefully sharing with a friend. So let's get to the games we've been playing, guys. And you know what, Nathan, since you're the guest and since you're going to talk about Apex Legends, let's just get that out of the way now. Take it away, sir.
So, hello, I am the guest. Thank you for letting me go first, guys. How are you tonight, first off?
Lucas?
Me? I didn't know who you were talking to. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Cool. How are you, Kevin?
Oh, I'm Jim Dandy.
I thought you were Kevin.
No, literally, that's my name on Thursday nights. I go by Jim Dandy.
Oh.
So now that we have that out of the way, I have been playing Apex Legends. As we mentioned there in a little bit, and I've also been playing Anthem. So I'm going to start out with Apex Legends, as we alluded to, because every podcast deserves like 10 minutes of Apex Legends time these days,
especially on our network.
That's right. You have to go to Fluxipose to avoid that. What? So anyway, Apex is fun. I still am chasing after the 1K. I've only got 2 wins so far. However, I did take a little bit of a break from Apex Legends to jump in my mech suit, my suit of armor, my javelin, my iron bands things, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, Anthem came out, and I have been playing a lot of that because we've been having some times where the actual PSVG folks can get together and play something finally. So I played with you, Kevin. That like never happens at all.
No, and we did twice, 2 days in a row, back to back.
Yeah, was it the first time we ever played? Was actually Apex?
No, PUBG. We played PUBG together.
Okay. That makes sense. So, but we played some Anthem, and then we also got Donnie, and I played with Josh. I've played with Kyle. I've played with Dev.
Yeah, Brad
Dev
Kowalski
was on the Xbox, and Kaboski. Yeah, he joined us. He played as well. So I played with a lot of folks from PSVG on Anthem, and it's made it a lot of fun. So I think we talked about this a little bit on the State of the Xbox Empire, the last episode that came out. But I have been enjoying it. I think it's a really fun game, even though the reviews are whatever they are. And my opinions of reviews notwithstanding, I think that it is a decent game because A, I'm having fun, and B, it's getting us friends together to actually play a game, which not many games have done that in the recent history. So, and for a game to bring Dev over to actually play with us too, by the way, from the West Coast to join the East Coasterners and actually everybody play together. That's a special piece of magic right there. So that's all I've been playing as far as games at this point. I did want to mention, shameless quick plug. I posted an episode today of a briefly entertaining episode of That's Entertaining Podcast about a fantastic show that everybody should watch, The Umbrella Academy.
So my wife and daughter watched it together and finished it in like
that's treason.
2 days, 3 days, I think. So
treason. You throw them out of the house. You
Why?
say you throw them out of the house because they didn't include you. First off,
well, I'd rather play video games. I will watch it, but they watch it during my video game time, so it's one or the other. So
I do see the dilemma. However, I do want you to watch Umbrella Academy. I think everybody should watch it. Not enough people are watching it because no one's talking about it. It's fantastic. It's so good. Anyway, Lucas, you're a film guy. You should watch it and then tell me what you've been playing.
I would, but Netflix is just going to cancel it regardless of how well it does. So I wouldn't get attached.
And it left on, I don't know the story, but I heard it left on a terrible, not even a cliffhanger. It just like stops.
The Umbrella Academy?
Yeah.
It's fine. I like the way it ends.
It's fine.
Don't concern yourself.
That'll do.
The story arc ended.
Right.
But it's not resolved. It's fine. That's storytelling. It makes you want to come back for the next season and get you talking about what's going to happen and what's going to happen next. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Game of Thrones and everything else does it.
How can a story arc not resolve but end? I don't understand. No spoilers.
The story. So a story doesn't have to resolve because a story is ongoing. However, arcs within stories can resolve and move on to another arc.
So you're saying there's an overarching arc, but there's also a seasonal arc.
It's a triple arc.
All done within the first season. What could possibly go wrong?
Should I talk about what I've been playing?
Go for it, sir.
All right. None of these Anthems and Apex Legends or other games that start with A. I finished Moonlighter.
I wish you would have said a game that started with A.
I know that would have been great.
I have never in my life played a game that started with A.
That reminds me of those stupid Facebook things. I bet you can't name a game without A in the title.
Yeah.
I finished Moonlighter is what
That's crazy. That's crazy. You tore through that thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty good at it. You know?
I'm a professional video game player.
I mean, when it comes to games that combine dungeon delving and also running your own shop, I excel 100%. Number one, awesome guy. I got some qualms with the game for sure. There were a couple of things that we discussed a little bit, Jason and I, because he was also playing it. My discussion of it actually brought him back to the game, and then he abandoned it quickly for Zelda because that's really what he wanted to be playing.
And not even the remake of the Zelda game. He's playing the original old Zelda game. Like
exactly. What are you doing? So anyways, I have qualms with it. There's a couple of things like there's a hitbox on an enemy that just does not work at all. It's at it's a flying enemy. It's at the very bottom. Since it's a 2D game, it's just awful. Very frustrating, especially when you're trying to hit it with a bow and arrow. I also, there's some weird quirks with the game. Like when you go back, so you can portal out of the dungeons, but you have a way of going back if you use this very expensive, way of doing this. And when you come back, for some reason, the map is completely entered or filled out, even though you've never gone through the entire dungeon. So I'm pretty sure they didn't mean for that to be a thing. So I easily just, use that to my advantage. So I would exit out of the dungeon as soon as I get to the next level, come back, and I'd know right where the boss was. If I needed to go through and collect money, I could do that. Or if I wanted to go straight to the boss, I could do that as well. So I'm pretty sure they didn't intend that to happen either. Overall, though, I'd say when I beat the game, it's kind of one of those games where you're like, well, that happened. From a story perspective, it wasn't really that compelling, but it was interesting. It just didn't go anywhere. It was just like, oh, this is the reason why you've been doing this stuff. Which whatever, I guess that's good enough. It's not like it's the most deep story ever anyways. Just a fun little game with a good gameplay loop and some decent gameplay. I would say I would be interested to see what they take from this game and apply it to the next thing they do.
That makes sense.
The combat needs to be a little overhauled.
That's what I was going to mention. Like for me, that was the biggest deterrent for me was the combat. Like it was like somewhat like Zelda, but not really like the old Zeldas, but not really. Like the swords felt so slow. Like, did you find a weapon that worked for you eventually, or like you just go through it?
Well, I stuck with the shield and sword just because it was the cheapest to upgrade. You had to make the other stuff unless you found it. The bow and arrow, though, is basically a necessity. When I got to a specific dungeon, it was about the only thing I could use. It wasn't very powerful, but it kept you at a distance, and that was really important for keeping you alive. And some of the bosses, I don't even know how you would use a melee weapon against a few of them, so without taking significant damage. So it kind of felt like I had to do it that way. You know what I mean? Not like I was choosing to do it that way, but because I don't know how else you would do it and survive. So, I just think it's a little railroaded in that sense that it almost feels like, and for instance, you had to upgrade all of your stuff all the way, in my opinion, to get through the game as well. So it seems like you're leveling it because you want to, your gear, but you're actually doing it because you have to. So it's not like for the completionists, you can level it up all the way, but you could scrape by with, only going up to level 2 with your gear or whatever. So overall, it's a little bit hit or miss, but generally speaking, it was pretty good. I would give it like a 7, I guess, out of 10.
7 out of 10.
Yeah, I gotta really settle on a score system here. Sometimes I do 5, sometimes I do 10s. Just kind of depends on how I'm feeling.
I've heard you do stars as well.
Stars, yes, yeah.
Let's go with burritos or chimichangas.
What about the clovers and the blue moons? When are you gonna start doing those?
That's in the DLC pack. You can, $2.99 you can get clovers. Another $2.99 you get blue moons.
They're just emotes. They don't do anything. They're just
no. It's
cosmetic.
It's all cosmetic. Don't worry. It doesn't change the game at all.
It's not pay to review.
The other game I played and also finished because
you didn't finish it.
Well, I mean, finished one of the stories is Resident Evil 2. I know there's more things to do with Leon. I get it, but basically it's the same, right? I mean, there's some locations that are the same. You're shaking your head. No. Okay, fine. It's a
the story goes in two entirely different directions after the police station.
How would I know that?
Because I told you in Discord earlier.
But I'm just saying, in general, if I didn't have that, what if I didn't have time to go back and play as Leon?
Then you'd watch a Let's Play on Twitch or something.
Not Jason. I don't do that.
Oh.
So that was a low blow. Right.
Yeah, it was.
So, okay, fine. I halfway completed 50% Resident Evil. I completed the Claire campaign. Let's just say it for what it is. It's a really good game. I'm really enjoying it. I'm kind of surprised by the fact that the gunplay and the movement feel so good. The whole locomotion system just feels great because I never fought with the controls. Not once. The way that the enemies move is interesting, and I thought it was going to be a problem because when these zombies that take 1 million shots to put down get back up again, you're never going to hold them down. They tend to sway around, right? And so you think that's going to be a real problem, but all you really have to do is just wait for them to enter your crosshairs, and then you just blast them again. So there's really no feeling of wildly swinging your gun around trying to in some games. I've noticed a few Switch first-person games in particular have a real tough time with controller aiming. And I will say I'm not really that great at it. Coming from PC gaming, I generally use a mouse and keyboard. But third-person shooters don't feel right on a mouse and keyboard.
No.
I got to play with a gamepad. So, but yeah, it's really great. Highly polished game. Very cinematic. which is, I guess it's kind of what I needed right now. I felt like, playing Moonlighter, playing Captain Toad and stuff like that. I just feel like I needed a story experience. And this definitely gives one for sure. I got to say though, there are some parts. So I got to the sewers. I played this and I beat it earlier today, and I played this part yesterday. And there is a part in the sewers where you expend so much ammunition in the in a certain part of while you're exploring, trying to find the little pawn thingies or whatever, to a piece of this puzzle to unlock a door. My God, just so many of the same enemy, 3 of them at the same time, plus another one that you meet somewhere else under there. And I'm just like, how many do I have to go through? Because I have only so much ammo. There's a storage box. It's so far away. My dog's going crazy for some reason. And I don't know. There were a lot of these moments where I felt so tense because the ammunition, the amount of enemies being pushed at me, I always felt like I was on the edge of running out of ammunition. And that's like where the tense moments of the game come through.
Yeah.
But I pushed through. All that to say, I never really did have a point where I was like, all right, I guess I just have to run through this because I don't have any ammunition. Yeah, there are some amazing moments in the game, memorable ones too. So I will be picking up the Leon section or other half of the game, so to speak, and playing that one. I don't know if I'll do it right away, but it definitely will be.
You don't need to. It's so like the same puzzles you described for the most part are going to be there. So that pawn puzzle and the sewer part is there in the Leon campaign. It's just their stories are entirely different. Like they're both doing separate stories, but they might visit the same places. So I would wait a little bit. Just
to kind of keep it non-repetitive, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I don't want to wait too long or else I'll completely forget and then I'll have to. I would like to run through it. Like I know how to do most of these puzzles. Let's just get through it so I can see the story. But I also don't want to get tired halfway through and then quit. So
yeah, and well, the one thing that they do is they switch the locations of certain things. And there's actually certain things that only Claire gets, and there's certain things that only Leon gets. So there'll be puzzles that you might have done that you won't even run into as Leon, and things where you might say like, "Oh, I know exactly where this is." Yeah, you probably don't if you're playing as Leon after playing Claire because they're gonna move them around a little bit. But
okay,
yeah, it'll be a little different. But
so I feel like I'm going crazy because I can't remember where something is, and it doesn't.
Yes,
I'm not going crazy. Good to know. Good to know. But yeah, really, just overall, really happy. Probably the best game I played this year. Honestly,
it's a lot of fun. It is. It really is. So for me, as Nathan said, playing Anthem as well. Played a couple times with people, which is an extreme rarity for me. Overall, I generally don't play with anybody for the most part. I am liking it despite the few quirks. It still has some room for improvement, as we mentioned. And State of the Xbox Empire did a good recap of a lot of the stuff. The constant load screens are kind of weird. It's not necessarily the loading times. It's just, hey, you have a loading screen for everything, and that takes you out of the experience.
And Destiny did something similar, with their loading screens. However, theirs looked like there was something going on. You were watching a ship flyer. It wasn't just the static image and the load screen and just like some little quip at the bottom of the screen. I mean, if they would change it and include something like that, I think a lot of people would just kind of let it pass, But at the same time, I am bugged by if you fall behind your group and they all go, you have like 10 seconds to get wherever they're at. And you could literally be like 2 feet away from the gate to get you in there. And then it loads you in for another like a minute. And you're like, seriously, I was right there. Why didn't you just let me finish? But yeah, sorry.
No, you're right. And the crazy thing too is that whole like catch up to your team screen. It's like, well, if you're all flying, you're all moving at the same speed except for that one javelin that's faster. So it's like you literally can't catch up unless your team stops and waits for you, which, let's be honest, no one's going to do that. Especially when it's like Donnie, which is load screens already automatically put them like, good 30 seconds to a minute behind us every time. So it's like, we're not waiting for you. We're just moving on. Let's keep going.
I told him to reinstall, and I think he did, and it improved it a little bit. I don't know if it's like 100% better or what. We'll have to get some feedback from the Donster.
We'll have to ask. But yeah, I like it. It feels very much a lot. Combat is very similar, I think, to Destiny, not in a bad way. I mean, there's different ultimates and mechanics are slightly different, but it feels good. It feels familiar. It's not like I had to reprogram my brain how to play this type of game. It's not like it's, you run into some of those games where it just changes the whole control scheme on you or throws you off. This game doesn't. It feels very familiar.
I love the flight. Just being able to just quickly move into the flight mode.
So good.
Feels like I'm Iron Man. And with the Avengers coming out, I'll probably be playing this a lot.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Just to get you hooked. But it's a lot of fun. Stories, whatever. But I mean, honestly, even with Destiny, I didn't really pay too much attention to the story. I just went through the missions and got gear and kept playing. So
have you noticed how many people are painted like Iron Man? Like every time I go with randoms, they're all painted like
Iron Man. and I specifically have not done that, so just to be against the green. And the other game I'll mention real quickly, Far Cry New Dawn. Still loving the heck out of this game, so I've been splitting my time between Anthem and Far Cry, depending on if anyone's playing or what time of day it is. But I'm absolutely loving this game, and ironically enough, as Nathan said, the Anthem getting mixed reviews, Far Cry also gets mixed reviews, and I'm having a fantastic time with both these games. So clearly, once again, as you guys mentioned, I encourage everybody to go back and listen to State of the Xbox Empire if you did not. They talk a little bit about reviews and who really has the better insight in the industry now, and it seems to be getting away from the air quotes professional reviewers, and you kind of find gamers have a better grip on things and don't take things as, I guess, in the same aspect that they do, where it's just like, hey, if it's fun, it can still be a good game. It doesn't necessarily have to be graphically the best or mechanically the best. You can still have a great time with any game. If it's in your wheelhouse, just finding that person that connects with you and likes the same stuff you do, and you can follow their advice for the most part. So
there you go.
So that wraps up what we're playing, everybody. So it's time to check in with you guys, the audience. Let's take a look at the messages.
Message for you, son.
Our first message / question comes in from Gabriella. She wants to know, how do we feel about Epic once again copying the competition and adding pinging like Apex Legends to Fortnite for Season 8? So Season 8 for Fortnite launched this morning, changing the map and the mechanics and adding and taking away different things as they always do. But the biggest addition that wasn't highly publicized until later in the afternoon, I guess people kind of realized it was there, was your ability to ping items, weapons, gear, medical supplies for your teammates. Now you can't ping enemies, so that's one thing that is a little bit different than Apex, but you can still ping everyone and say like, hey, there's a sniper rifle right here, come get it, kind of deal, without having to talk to people on the mics, which once again, unless I know who I'm playing with, I definitely don't turn on my mics when playing Fortnite because the kids are just annoying as all get out. But yeah, I wanted to address this because I found it interesting. So one of the things I will say, we and a lot of people and have podcasts that talked about Apex Legends when it first came out all said like, hey, this ping thing, this is amazing. This should be in every battle royale game. Well, Epic is doing exactly what people said, but yet I'm noticing a lot of people are like, oh man, Epic's just copying. I was like, who didn't ask for that to be added to every battle royale? Plus, for those that are in the know, this Apex Legends wasn't the first one to do it. PUBG actually tested it a long time ago. They took it out fairly quickly because they found it kind of gave an unfair advantage to some people when gear is kind of spread out throughout this map. So they took it out. But Apex definitely was the first one to do it. They just implemented it a lot better. So Fortnite and Epic Games, just being who they are, have shown their ability to adapt and move and change what they do on a weekly basis. They've updated their game more than anybody else has in these battle royales so far to date. Once again, just showing that they can adapt and move with things. So I don't have a problem with it at all. I think it's the right move. As I said, when Apex Legends came out, every battle royale game should have something similar. So I'm not mad at it.
What button did they replace?
I don't know.
Kevin, this is why we pay you. We want to know what button they replaced.
I'll have to look. I haven't used it yet because I've only played solo on the new season so far.
You should be playing solo and ping out stuff for yourself.
Let me just mark this for later. I'll come back and get this gun.
It's like leaving a little thing, a little snack for later.
Yeah.
Like, I'll come back to you.
So your thoughts, Nathan, though, on the pinging. Since you enjoy Apex Legends so much, I imagine you use that function a lot. Do you have a problem with Epic now adding that to Fortnite or no?
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. Obviously, I think, and as you said, the ping system is great. It really works seamlessly and flawlessly in Apex Legends, but it sounds like the Apex Legend implementation obviously was more, designed around it, and it has that different wheel option you can do. Like you can say, hey, people have been here before, things like that, or I'm defending this area. I doubt you can do that in Fortnite. It's probably just a little more primitive, just like you said, with the weapons and the things like that. So, the nice thing about competition in the industry, we see it between, Apple and Samsung and Microsoft and Sony and Epic and now Respawn, they're able to see what works and see what resonates, understand how it might work on their platform, adapt and add if it's possible. Not all games could have a ping system like this, right? So where it works and makes sense, that would be, really cool. We have I see tweets, people asking for an Anthem ping system, and the BioWare folks are saying, well, we're looking into it, at this point. It's the hot sauce right now. It's the new thing that everybody's wanting to talk about. And I think it's a great little feature. I think that there's a lot of good use that can be out there for it, but every game doesn't necessarily need it. But I do think that when you're talking a squad game like Apex, that's definitely built that's best experienced with a group of people that may not have the ability to talk to each other, that definitely is important, and it works really well.
So it's left on the D-pad on consoles, or if you're cool like Lucas, it's the middle mouse button. So
nobody uses the middle mouse button.
Nobody's cool like me.
That's why they mapped it there, because nobody else uses it. So they had to give it some function people would use.
You know what I use that middle mouse button for?
I know. This is a family show. We can't get into that. So, Lucas, will this now get you to play Fortnite now that you can ping your weapons?
I can't believe that Epic had to go so low as to just copy something from another game. Like, how desperate are they that they need to take something? I mean, what's next? Are they going to have drivable cars because GTA has them? I don't understand this at all.
They have drivable cars.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If I
next thing they're going to have Thanos in there or something like that because Avengers is popular.
Yeah, it's just a disgusting display of let's just take all the popular culture and throw it into a pot and see what happens.
Does Lucas not know Thanos was in Fortnite?
I do know. That's what I'm saying. Exactly. They could have at least renamed it dinging instead of pinging. Gosh. No, I really could care less. I think it's fine.
Fair enough. So the other message we got in was from the boss man, Donnie. He sent over an article that said he's kind of concerned about this becoming a trend. And this was Amy Hennig had done an interview and basically said at the DICE Summit that a game like the original Uncharted would never be made again. With the focus on games being these massive, super long games like The Witcher or anything like that, or having to cram in online multiplayer for everything, that a single player game that's about 8 hours, much like Resident Evil 2 was, that she just doesn't see that these types of games can ever be made again, because even these single player experiences that are coming out, Spider-Man, God of War, they're still much, much longer than anything she had done in the past and used to make. So there's not a whole lot to this story, but I agree with Donnie's kind of concern. We see these games that occasionally will come out like this and they kind of get overlooked. Like, what was the order? What was the
86 or something?
Yeah. So that was
86 plus 5 minus 2.
Yes. Square root of 23.
Math edition.
Yes. So that was an example of a game that was like beautiful to look at. It was done very well, but it was extremely short. And I know the people that paid $60 for it would be upset, but had the game like launched at $30, I think people would have been much happier about that, because that was even much shorter than the original Uncharted. But I'm okay with these games that are just really well polished, that tell a story, that look good and just work. Like Resident Evil 2 Remake. That's a great example of something that's not super long. It's done really well, has the polish on it, still has a good story to it, gives you something different to play, kind of just brushes up the mechanics a little bit, just makes it feel fresh again. I'm okay with these types of games, but you're right, they're becoming less and less. The focus now seems to be like, hey, you have to play with friends, you have to have, like for Anthem is not, and I've done it a few times, Anthem is not that fun if you're playing by yourself. It is literally even better playing with randoms than it is playing by yourself, and that's just kind of how games are shifting to be. You look at Call of Duty, doesn't even have single player. It's like, hey, here's just these campaigns, these online multiplayer things you get to play and these experiences, and we don't do a single player campaign anymore. And it seems to be becoming the trend that everything has to be online, everything needs to be multiplayer. So I share Donnie's concern there, but I think we'll still get some breakthroughs that will come out, but I don't think they're going to sell that great because people will overlook them because they don't have all these extras, all these, bells and whistles added to it. Just like, hey, here's just a really well done game you can get done in 8 hours. And I think people are going to miss it unless it has a major, franchise attached to it. So, I mean, you can get away with maybe doing like an Iron Man game that's just a single player campaign that's like 8 hours long, tells the story, the end. But you don't see that come up much anymore. So do you share those kind of concerns, Lucas? Because I know you're similar. You don't play a ton of online multiplayer. You're more the solo gamer as well.
I share the concerns, but I have a positive outlook, a hopeful outlook on this. I think what will probably happen is the further the AAA games go in this direction, and they're going to be forced by shareholders and stuff. They want to make money. I don't blame them for that, I suppose, but it is going to squash the idea of a single player game that lasts 8 to 15 hours, that type of thing. What I hope and what I think will happen is we will see an emergence not only of indie games taking up the mantle of this, where as they can. It is still difficult to make an 8 to 12 hour game that would be on like the level of Uncharted, but you could do it. I think something like Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice is kind of like the middle ground where we're going to see more games spring up that fill this area. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of how kind of Hollywood works, I suppose. So you would complain that all movies end up like Transformers or, these big blockbusters, and that's all they care about is making $80 billion on opening weekend or whatever. But that's why you have the indie community making, what they think is kind of a need that they see in this hobby or whatever.
Like Black Panther.
Yes, exactly. That little indie movie, that indie darling. But yeah, I hold out hope that if that does happen, it will be, filled in by, like you said, probably lesser known studios that may only have 1 or 2 games out. But I think that those experiences can be had and be made fairly well in that space. Kind of a AA game, I guess, if you were, instead of a AAA. So
you can never find AA's when you need them, really. It's always a pain.
But they are also the only batteries anybody buys. So
it's true. But I always end up like looking for them, and I have a drawer full of AAA games, and I can't find those AA games all the time.
Well, nobody else can either, apparently, because they just don't do as well.
They don't. Nathan,
give them a chance. Give them a chance.
So this goes back to the discussion of are video games considered art, right? And if you want to be considered an art form, then you have to be able to, in my opinion, portray the story in a way that's, that allows you to go through that 3 or 4 act structure and understand a person's journey or character's journey, understanding, how you got from point A to point B, the interactions between them and their people, creating those stories. And a lot of times when you get too bloated, those go away, right? You can have a story like Final Fantasy 15, which I personally love. However, you play 100 hours in that, you forget what happened, 2 hours in. Why? What's the motivation again? What's going on? Mm-hmm. Whereas when you keep it crisp and you keep it, to the 8 to 12 hour range, you're able to tell those stories. Now, I do believe that, games like the Telltale games, which RIP, those would equal out to be about 10 hours, right? Granted, those are more episodic, and those are kind of leaning towards games as a service type games as well. So they're definitely getting that monetization and the episode of the shows. However, I do think that we would still receive those type of games in this day and age, even though I don't think we would see it from EA. I don't think we would see it from Activision Blizzard. I don't think we would see it from a lot of those big companies because, like Lucas said, they're shareholders, and that at the end of the day, it's a business to them. They don't care about anything except the bottom line. But when you get artists that care about the story, that care about what players experience and really understand what resonates on emotional levels, and you get away from all that microtransaction stuff, and you get away from loot boxes and all this other jazz, and you focus on the content, the core content, and what makes the story, what makes it work, that will never die. We'll never lose that. Like Lucas said, we got the indie community that comes out. The Outer Worlds game coming out soon is supposed to be in that range, like that 12-hour kind of time period. Around the time that the Uncharted game came out, granted this was a Star Wars title, but The Force Unleashed came out, in that time period too. And that was a singular story without any multiplayer, anything like that. So it could have been done. And Amy, in her experience, though, with working in Naughty Dog, leaving to take the opportunity to write the Star Wars game, but getting shut down because EA, again, the business, wants to try to understand how to monetize it and make it as a service game. It conflicts with the true art mentality. And that's what she has. And that's probably what she's lamenting, is the fact that that true art mentality is on the decline at this point. However, I don't think it will ever die.
What's dead will never die.
That's right.
He never died?
He never died. Now you're just being silly.
We're being silly. So that wraps up the messages, the emails, the questions for the week from everybody. So thank you for sending those in. As a reminder, you can always tweet at us at PSVG or hit me up in Discord if you want something addressed or talked about on next week's show. So, gentlemen, it's been a week. So with that, it's time to check out the news of the week.
I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite news outlet on the Citadel.
First are the quick hit news items here. PlayStation Plus and Games with Gold were announced for March. So go get your air quotes free games. First up, we'll discuss PS Plus. So this is the first month they are no longer offering games for the Vita and the PS3. So as they said a while ago, they would be discontinuing that. This is the first month where it hits that. So it's a little bit weird to hear them announce those games and only have 2 titles out there, because typically with the Vita games, they were crossed by PS4. So you'd get 3 or 4 games each month, but now we're only getting 2. But they came out swinging. So one of the games is The Witness, the puzzle game, if you will. And also the Modern Warfare Call of Duty Remastered are the free games for PlayStation Plus in March that you can pick up if you subscribe to that. And on the other side of that coin, we have Xbox Live Games with Gold announcement for March, the entire month of March. You can get Adventure Time Pirates of the Enchiridion? I don't know. I don't watch Adventure Time. Do you watch it, Lucas?
Yeah, but I never heard that word said
Okay.
before.
Okay. And also Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2 is on there. You can get that from March 16th to April 15th from the beginning of the month, because Xbox does weird things. They can't just give you the games the whole month. They do these weird staggered things. But you can also get the original Xbox classic Star Wars Republic Commando from March 1st to the 15th, and Metal Gear Rising from March 16th to the 31st. All are backwards compatible.
Metal Gear Rising Revengeance.
Sure.
With the whole title. Come on now.
Sure.
Revenge.
That title is as forgettable as the game. Ayo! Just kidding. So I'm excited for the PlayStation ones. The Witness I never bought because I heard it's excruciatingly hard.
Don't you have it on Xbox?
I don't think so.
Because it was a Games with Gold a while back.
I told you earlier, Donnie doesn't redeem any games with gold. I don't know why.
You have Xbox Live, right?
Yes, but he owns Xbox Live, so technically I do
He
not
owns
have
Xbox Live. Like the complete service is his.
Yes, he calls up Phil Spencer and Major Nelson and tells them what to do. But no, so Donnie is the holder of it, so I can't download the Games with Gold games unless he adds them to the library. So and he for some reason doesn't add any to the library unless I tell him to. So I don't have The Witness, but I did want to play it, so I'll get to play it now. And Modern Warfare Remaster, I'm very excited for. That's great. Pick up there. Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2 I did play back on PlayStation 4, I think. It's okay. It's a cool attempt at something that they did that was fun, but I'm not sure the player base is there. It'll pick up a little bit, obviously, being on Games with Gold, but I don't think there was that strong of a player base to really suck people in. But I know Nathan's especially excited for at least one of these games, sir. So why don't you take it away from here?
Let me transport you back to a time. It was
In a world
without the attack of the clones. So this is actually set before the Revenge of the Sith, actually. And I think this came out maybe 6 months or so before that movie. Oh man, this was a great game back in the day. I loved it. It was so good. It had online multiplayer, arena combat type stuff. It had they had a take on the Halo guy that talks when you get kill streaks and stuff like that, and he'd like headshot, stuff like that. So it's a great game. The story is really good. You play through this. You're a squad of 4 Republic Commandos, and it was the first squad-based shooter that you could actually direct your troops around to go different places. Like, hey, you go here, you go here, and it was really well done. Back in the day, that was in the heyday of LucasArts, and when they made the games, they had the animation studio, they had the Skywalker Sound and ILM, and they were all in the same campus, and they worked together on a lot of those games that came out at that time. There weren't very many, unfortunately, but this was one of them. And the sound design on this game back then was amazing. And I haven't listened to it recently, but I do have the disc of that game still. I like it that much. I still have that disc from the original release. And I put it back in when it became Xbox One backwards compatible. And this is a great game. I mean, it's not going to look as good as the other games, obviously, but it is Xbox One X enhanced if you have that. So you get a little bit of an up-res there. It's got a good story. It's got a good design. It's got everything you could want from a Star Wars shooter, I would think, that has a story. So like if you're wanting a story from Battlefront and stuff like that, this is kind of what you should play, because this is what you want. But it leads right into episode 3, and I just like this game a lot. It's so good. I was talking to Donnie again. We keep mentioning that guy. Who was he again? Anyway, but he was talking to him in the Discord about this, and we've made a bargain. We've made a deal. We've committed to each other. Yes, we have. But we've committed to each other that we will play a game of so I'm gonna play Life is Strange Before the Storm, as long as he plays Star Wars Republic Commando. So I'm hoping he enjoys it. He will actually download and claim this game. That means, Kevin, so you'll have an opportunity to play it as well.
Well, he tells you he's going to go back and play it. We'll have to see. We'll have to check his gamer score. Although I think he hides it though.
You know, as the co-host of the state of the Xbox Empire, I can pretty much assure you that he will follow through with this.
Okay. All right.
So at least
throwing your power around now.
Once you sign the contract with the Emperor gets certain rights and you waive them. So anyway, it's a great game. I think everybody should play it. And I love seeing these Xbox One original games coming on Gamepad, or not Game Pass, games with gold. It's just great to see the legacy continue on. I mean, you have all 3 generations represented for this month of games. You have the Revengeance, whatever it was called, game. You have the Star Wars game, and you have the other 2 games. So I just love the commitment to legacy that's going on here. And that speaks more to me than anything else. Any of the games that are actually on this list, the commitment to legacy is amazing.
Yeah, they're doing a good job.
We need that as a sound clip we can just put wherever we want.
So it's also worth pointing out that they have not announced additions to Game Pass for March as of yet. At least as we're recording this, they could do it tomorrow, being Friday when we're actually recording this.
They're going to add like 20 games throughout the month, and just whenever they feel like.
Right. So no announcement there at least. Now, Lucas, I know you don't have the Xbox or the PS, but do you have any experience with any of these games through your numerous Humble Bundles or your massive Steam library?
Yes, I've played The Witness. That actually was hyped up a lot before it came out. And then when I played it, it's kind of just puzzles that are wrapped in a first person shell, sort of, because the main gameplay is actually just going up to these pedestals that have light beam puzzles on them and stuff. So it actually ends up being a lot less. I guess I was kind of expecting more physics based puzzles and sort of more in the world type thing, but it's more like you sat down and did some Sudokus sort of, except for you have to move physically your body to each page, and it's just pasted on a wall somewhere. It's not bad. It's just, it's gorgeous. It looks great, but the gameplay, at least as far as I got, was boiled down to, unlock a path, go down it, get to the next pedestal thing, do the puzzle there, or fail it miserably and come back to it later and continue on to something else. So it's kind of like Myst in that way, where you're just kind of wandering around, and then you see a puzzle and you try to figure it out and see if you can do it yet or not. But it is very challenging, very hard game. Other than that, I don't think I played. I played the original Modern Warfare 2, but not the remake. So other than that, I can't really speak much to the rest of them. So
cool. All right, so we'll move on to the next news topics we have, and ironically enough, Lucas and I have some that are kind of tied in a roundabout way, and this is going to be good. So they're not big headline announcements. We're not going to talk about the Pokemon Direct. We'll leave that to Donnie. We won't pick on him for that much, or anything like that. We're going to break these down. So there was an article on Kotaku. I want to give them some credit, not much because it's Kotaku, but we will. And they posted an article about when should you start introducing your kids to video games. So I have numerous kids that I claim
from the same mother, or
what?
From the same mother, or
yes,
oh, well.
yes. Those are the ones. Those are just ones I claim. Yeah, those are the ones I file on my taxes.
Yeah.
Lucas has a child, and
yep, another on the way.
With child, you're with child, and Nathan has some experience there as well. Obviously, Nathan's is a little too young for gaming, I think, but I don't know. We'll let him talk about it shortly. Maybe he's doing something very untraditional parenting styles there, but it was more just kind of pointing out the effects of having a parent that games on kids, more than introducing like, hey, my kid's 7, I'm going to hand him an NES controller. It's more like, hey, I'm a gamer and that's part of my life, and my kids see that. When do I invite them into that part of my life, if you will? So for me, I have 3 daughters. I have one that's 15, one that is 12, and one that will be 4 next month. So they have all been introduced to video games in some way, shape, or form. My 4-year-old hasn't actually played any yet, but I'll get to that in a moment. So my 2 older ones both probably started gaming around 4, actually, and their first experiences were with things such as the 3DS, because it was all touch control, so it was easy for them to navigate through things. And there were a lot of early children's games. So that's something we don't see much anymore, but there were games that were actually rated EC for early childhood, and they'd all be like educational based, like on Sesame Street, Dora the Explorer back then. Some of the more popular kids toys had these game experiences that they could play through. So they did that. And my oldest daughter's first game actually was Cooking Mama. So she learned, how to do the different motions on the 3DS to use it. Now, they all still play games. My middle child plays a lot of the Lego games. She likes that kind of things. My oldest actually plays a lot of Fortnite. That's pretty much about it. She'll play some Switch games if we're playing like family ones, but she's just like Fortnite kid. She'll play that one. And the youngest is we've done that whole thing like, hey, here's the controller that doesn't work. You're playing the game with daddy. And she picks the Fortnite skins for me, and I just play Fortnite, and she picks my character for me. So we do some of that, but the generational thing that's a little bit different, and this might apply more to you guys being newer fathers compared to me because I'm old. The invention of apps and tablets and things of that nature get kids exposed to some sort of, it's not like gaming, like they're not playing Mario on Amazon, Fire tablet, but they are playing certain things like matching games or, Lego games, but instead of like Legos and you're running around this world like Lego Incredibles, you're actually building things with these blocks, more like Minecraft-ish type things. And that's what my youngest one does currently. So she does play those things. She loves those little match games where you just flip things over and you got to find the card that matches it. She loves those things. So technically I would say she's kind of exposed to gaming, but she hasn't started playing games with us as of yet. But I do expect that to be something coming probably pretty shortly for her. It's just we don't have any games that really fit that bill. We could probably do like Mario Party or something like that. But she doesn't really have the hand-eye coordination down yet. She's used to these physical touch screens because that's how her generation is kind of going up, where I can just touch things and make it happen. So Lucas, I know you've done some experimenting here already a little bit. So what made you decide that, hey, it was time? Was it more convenience, or was it like a conscious thing where like, hey kid, you're bothering me, come play the game with daddy? Or is it more like, hey, I think you could do this now, boy?
Actually, he kind of was the one who showed interest in it. So I tried playing the Switch portably upstairs, and because we were like after dinner one night or something, and he showed interest, and he's always shown interest in what I was doing. And then it's fallen out one way or the other for like, what am I doing on my phone? What are you doing on the computer? He used to be, you could never use a laptop with him around because he would want to come over and smash all the keys on the keyboard. But that, slowly kind of faded away. But then it was replaced by, what are you doing on the Switch? Daddy's playing video games. I want to see what you're what you're doing. So I let him see, what I was doing, because I was playing like Mario, something like that, Odyssey. And he asked to play it. And I let him do it. I let him play probably on the Switch first, like the actual handheld.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're letting him make his own mistakes. I appreciate that.
By being involved in gaming.
By playing Mario.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I honestly don't even know. I own it, but I haven't played it.
Wow.
Wow.
So after that, I basically have been tracking his progress, writing down, taking video, giving him notes afterward about how he could have done better.
Like a science experiment? You're like, you have a lab coat on when you're doing this?
I don't have a hypothesis, so it's not like that at all. Nor am I using the scientific method.
Is his name 11?
12. We had to get rid of 11. So basically, he went from trying to use the handheld to because that's really hard to actually get. It's easy for him to hold because he's used to his tablet, because that's where he started as well. But I would say he's at the point now where he's actually playing Mario. It started where he did not know really how to control himself, and he would often ask me to do things as simple as just going somewhere, like get me to this place. Now he can manipulate Mario pretty much through just about anything except boss fights. And he doesn't like fighting. He'll stop and be like, Dad, there's Goombas over there. And he'll ask me to take care of those types of situations. But overall, he's been very interested. He often asks, Dad, can I play the Mario game? And that's what it is. It's not, it's like that one specific thing. He also knows Captain Toad, but he weirdly can't control that as well. I think it's because it's isometric.
Yeah.
The camera's a little bit weird. So it's easier to be behind the character and just go straight forward than it is to look from above and try to figure out where you're supposed to go.
Yeah, it is.
So he, generally speaking, though, he's very interested, hooked on it, basically. And I wasn't the one to really, I didn't say, hey, kid, get over here. You and Dad are going to do something now. I didn't force him to play. I read that article that you had shared and definitely didn't do what they did.
I know.
You're going to play Halo with me and you better get good because, Dad's got a kill death ratio to. So
it was like the article's a little, like, it started off disheartening when they were like, my 2-year-old, like anytime I was playing Switch would yell like, no Pikachu, mama, because they were mad they were playing the Switch instead of paying attention to their kid. And that made me a little sad, but
yeah, me too, actually. Like, poor parent doesn't get to play. How neglectful did they have to be as parents before your children start telling you, no, please don't play the Switch, mommy. I just want to play with you.
I know, right? Sad. Anyway, so Nathan, what's your gaming game plan with your little one there? What do you anticipate going down and how?
So my guy has already got his first achievement.
Was it watching Netflix? That one achievement you get for watching Netflix?
It's turning the Xbox on.
Whoa.
So he's gonna be 14 months, I think tomorrow, and I think it's 14. It could be 15. It's weird when you get the month count.
Yeah,
Years and weird. Yeah.
So anyway, but he's getting a month older tomorrow. What to say that? And to this point, he loves my Xbox controller. It's like he sees it and he grabs it and we actually use that controller on the upstairs TV, and that's where we watch our TV because it goes through there. And so he'll grab it, hold on to it, and change the channels and stuff. And it's funny because he takes the controller and he looks at the screen to see what he's doing with it. So he knows there's a correlation there, and that what he does is affecting something on the screen. So he's already building that understanding of cause and effect, which is really cool. And I think that, as I've seen that go through, I bought him a little like Fisher Price, like little controller thing. And a couple weeks ago from Target, I saw it and I was like, this is perfect. My intent was, when I'm watching him, at this point, I can't play games with him at home, because if it's just me and him, because I'm watching him and we're playing up in his room, or we're doing something, we're building blocks, and he's just, you gotta give him for full attention pretty much. But I was like, what if I take this and we go down to my basement area and I give him the controller and I have my controller and we're like doing a little daddy son controller time. That didn't work at all, by the way. So
this guy's a control freak.
I know, right? He wants the real controller because that's the one that you want, and so he wants that one.
He's learning.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty funny just watching him learn and understand how to do stuff. But anyway, I was thinking about this as you were talking, and sons to a certain age, and all children imitate their parents, right? They see what they're doing, and they kind of want to react to it, and then they get to another age where they stop and they kind of do their own thing, and they're like, you know what, this is something my dad does. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm wondering if we're going to see that with this next generation, right? Because we are really of the gaming generation, right? We're the ones that are raising the kids now that our parents probably weren't gamers. And so now we're going to see probably what that next generation gravitates to. What will that be? It could be something completely different. Like, I don't understand Minecraft. I don't, right? It's just, I don't want to play with that. I'll play with Legos instead. There's going to be another thing that comes along that they'll probably go towards and gravitate towards. I'll be interested to really understand what that is as he gets older and as we watch him grow and as the society leans towards another little medium of entertainment. There's probably something out there already. I just haven't seen it yet, right? That the new kids are going towards. But
yeah, Fortnite.
But I do think that, for me, when he gets to a certain age, I'll try to, if he's interested, I'll see if he wants to play like a Mario Kart or something like that, or Smash Brothers or something easy.
It's funny to think of a kid being like, no, Dad, I don't want to play Mario Kart with you. Jeez, I just want to read my book.
That's right. I just want to go outside and play with the flowers.
You're like, no.
Whatever. I don't know.
We have this game called Flower. You could play that instead.
We got Game Pass in here. What are you doing? It's going to just be one of those things that whatever he kind of gravitates towards, just seeing how he reacts to it, not forcing him to do one thing or another, and just let him create his own tastes and develop them. That's my game plan. I have a huge library of generational content for him to check out and get to when he's ready, right? I'm not going to be like plopping it on Nintendo and say, here you go, start from the ground up. Here's Zelda. It'll just be whatever. Like if he sees Kingdom Hearts 3 on the screen, like he's seen that and he's been entertained by that, so he watches that sometimes, and he sees me controlling it, and he's like, ooh. And that could be the thing, right? He sees a Mickey on the screen. He wants to control a Mickey, and there you go. Whatever he wants to do.
Killing people.
Yeah.
Why is Mickey beating people with the large metal pipe?
But no, that's kind of my thoughts on the matter. I feel like we're going to get to a point though in the society that we will, as the gaming generation, have generations that casually game, but really it's going to die with us probably. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yep. They'll just keep playing Fortnite, nothing else.
I'm more worried that my kid is going to hate tabletop role-playing games or board games because I haven't done those things in so long. And that is a participatory type thing. You can't just do it yourself, really. So I'll be like, please be into this because it's been so long. Your poor mother doesn't want to role play with me anymore.
Well, you shouldn't be doing that with your kids in the same way, but different role playing.
I said stop.
Okay. No, that's a good point though. The tabletop thing is a good point. So my 4-year-old does do tabletop gaming. So we've already taught her, like, she understands, nothing extravagant, but like Candyland. She understands the mechanics of Candyland. This is how it works. I draw the card and move here. There's another game called Cootie where you roll dice and you build these little cooties, these little ant-like creatures. So she'll do games like that, and I'm looking at doing some more expansive things down the line, but she's interested in that too. And you're right. That's a little bit easier to be, hey, this is a daddy daughter or daddy son experience. We're going to play this together. We're in a game. It's a little bit different. You both may be in the same room. You might even both be playing the same game, but you're just staring at the screen. There's not much actual interaction. So
yeah,
it's a different thing. And Nathan's first game for him and his son will definitely be Lego Star Wars. I'm calling it right there. That's the good one.
I think you're right.
Maybe
it's non-violent and it's Legos and it's Star Wars. I don't see anything wrong with that for you. So.
Super Bombad Racing was a pretty good one too.
We're going to play Grand Theft Auto 3, son. I'm going to show you how to beat up hookers and get your money back.
This is Gears of War.
Get that chainsaw gun. So Lucas, you had a story somewhat similar along the same vein. So take it away, sir.
Yeah, this comes from Abacus News. I originally thought this was
That doesn't add up.
but yeah. Oh,
Hey-o.
so this comes, or this is basically about gaming in China, and again, how that's handled for children. Now, obviously in America, where basically the parents are the one who control how much your children game, right? You do have, thankfully, there are devices that have kid controls enabled where you can set a timer or whatever. Because let's face it, it's really easy to just give them something and just forget how long they've actually been playing it. I didn't even know the Switch reports how much. Kevin, you're muted right now.
Oh, that takes me from the joke. I was about to say, yeah, you totally lose track of time. My kids have been playing that Momo challenge for like 6 hours straight. I have no idea.
I haven't even checked in on them. I bet. You know what? I'll be right back. So I didn't even know the Switch had parental controls that give you a report as to how long they've been playing and stuff. So that's really cool. I'll definitely be using that in the future on their next console, probably. But in China, I'm sure to nobody's surprise, the government gets involved, and it's basically there's a gaming giant called Tencent, which already imposes, this is from the article, already imposes various controls on young players' game time. But it's testing a new feature this week, a monitoring system that sends teachers daily updates of how long their students played and how much money they spent, which I'm kind of surprised they're allowed to spend any money at all. But basically, they're allowed to play for either 1 hour or 2 hours a day total. And there's a nighttime curfew of 9 p.m. from 9 p.m. to 8 p.m. And that is enacted through the government. I mean, through extensions, but basically it's the government, because they got involved and said, we think that video games have a negative effect on child's growth. So I don't know, it's just a real eye-opening article to read about, and kind of makes me appreciative of how we live here, because, you know, depending on how you feel about your kids gaming at all, the fact that you wouldn't have any choice over it at all just seems completely foreign to me.
Yeah, it's weird. So, you know, this fully puts it on, you know, the government, like you said, this 10-cent application basically to verify, to parent for you. Whereas, you know, over here, it's kind of like, well, whatever the parent wants to do is how it goes. You can determine what you want to do. If my kid wants to get up at 6, but they got enough sleep the night before and they want to game before going to school, personally, I don't really care. But in China, it's literally not an option. Like, you cannot before 8 a.m. So it's a little weird. But
if you don't know, they don't have Xbox or PlayStation or anything there. There's a ban on all of that stuff. So it's all literally controlled by them.
Yeah.
I know.
So it's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, right. The
Soldier Boy console.
Thing they have there.
They probably made it there. What are you talking about? It's manufactured there.
Yeah. How did they download the ROMs then? Oh.
But yeah, I mean, this even makes sense too, that this makes mention rather in the article that they're also considering implementing mandatory facial recognition, so that kids can't even fake it.
Yeah.
So like, if you're saying, like, you know, if they steal their dad's phone or dad's console to game, that you know, it's gonna be like, okay, well, no, you're not him. Let's take it out. Like, that's just nuts.
You are not dad now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
An
Crazy
blow up sequence in 10, 9. Oh my god!
I lost all my Fortnite skins. Yeah, so it's crazy. I mean, for me, I luckily my kids aren't as hooked on it, so I don't need to really manage it. Like, you know, my kid might come home from school and she'll play Fortnite for like an hour after she's done with her homework, kind of deal, and maybe a little bit before bedtime. Well, after dinner rather, not before bedtime, because that's when daddy plays games. But after dinner, she might come down and play for a little bit too. And my middle child will pretty much only play if I'm playing with her, kind of deal. So I don't really have to worry about it too much. But I can't imagine growing up as a kid where my parents kind of let me do whatever I wanted to. And like, weekends were like, those were video games. You know, all freaking day, doesn't matter. I'm just doing, I'll stop to eat and that's about it. I'll go back and play video games all weekend. Summer vacations, forget it. You know, I can't imagine being limited to that. But like, hey, you need to stop at 9 p.m. and you can't game until 8 a.m. the next day. Like, no, you know, I want to play. It's just weird that I'm not sure what the motivation is here. to be honest. Like, you figure, why does the Chinese government care that much to be like, hey, we don't want kids playing? I don't know if it's, to keep their grade scores up. Like, we know their schooling is very structured and stiff and everything like that. Like, is it really for that as motivation, or is it something deeper? Like, I don't really quite get it.
Well, like it says here in the article, they consider one of the most popular blockbuster games, as they put it, Arena of Valor, or known in China as Honor of Kings, to be addictive poison in the eyes of the government. So I think they have a very, one specific mind track, and that's anything that isn't, they're very traditional, I believe. So anything that kind of games are kind of seen as a outside influence, regardless of whether or not gaming in general, the idea of video games are kind of a Japanese and American thing. So I don't think the Chinese really appreciate that very much. I also found it very interesting at the end of the article. They say parents are dealing with kids who will do anything to sneak as much gaming time in as possible. And I'm of the mind that the more you make something unavailable to them, the more they're going to want it. Whether TV, movies, video games, music, doesn't matter. They're in that mindset where, oh, I'm not allowed. Well, I'm going to do anything to get it because it must be good then, which is why I let my kid drink. So,
well, it's funny too. So like we had, my daughter is going to be doing, what the heck's the sport? Lacrosse. Out of nowhere, she's like, "Hey, Daddy, I want to try out for a sport." So like we had to go and do, the whole school process, which for me is insane. So when I went to school and signed for sports, it's like, hey, whatever, you sign this waiver form, end of conversation. We had to get stuff notarized. I had to go to this meeting, which was 3 hours, and it talked about like concussions and sudden heart failure and stuff like that. But one of the things was they made us take this quiz, and I was actually surprised by this. But I think it's based on the same thing that you said, where, hey, if you make something unavailable, they're more likely to go for it. And if you just don't pay as much attention, the attraction's not there. Is alcohol use amongst teens is actually way down from like 10 years prior. And in my head, I really thought it was going to be a high number. And it was like, no, it's actually way down. I'm like, wow, that's surprising to me.
Yeah.
Now, vaping is up, but that also wasn't a thing. So
that's true. I think it's they don't have as much problems in countries, generally speaking, where the drinking age is 18 as well. They don't have as much, you go to college and all you want to do is drink beer until you pass out.
It's the doing the thing that you can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Not every kid has that impulse, but I think it's fairly common. So
sure.
I don't know. All I'm saying is we should be, I know my childhood was filled with video games. So if I lived there, I don't know what else I would have been doing. I'd probably be like able to play an instrument, like a master or something. Really well.
Violin.
Yeah.
Been a great violinist.
Yeah. But I mean, realistically, how can you put a price on video game skills? I mean, they're so lucrative.
How much does Ninja make?
Yeah. And you got hand-eye coordination like a beast.
That's right. Catching flies with my fingers.
Chopsticks. So Nathan, any input there other than your comment that he could be a great violinist?
So I think that it's crazy that the government itself is mandating that. That is a bit weird. However, I do fully intend on when Isaac he's of age, I will fully go into my router settings and set the time limits for him and for his like IP addresses and everything, and make it so like he can't use his technology at a certain time but that's my rule. That's not like the government's rule. So that's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, I do agree.
Sorry, guys, we're breaking down here in the chat. It's getting late. I think we're all tired, but
I agree that there needs to be supervision, but not just cut and dry. These are the end times,
Yeah, and like I said, with my kids, I don't really have to monitor it because they're not that hooked on it. So it's exactly what you said. Like, hey, if you make it available, it'll be less interest there. That's what's worked for me so far. But you're right. I don't know what I'd do if it became an issue. Like, I mean, obviously I watch my kids, I know what they're doing, but you never know. Like, hey, I run out to the store. Me and my wife go out and the kids are at home. Like, they could be booting up the video game console and playing the entire time I'm out instead of studying or doing whatever I ask them to do. Yeah. That could very well happen. But I know like my kids just aren't that way. But if they were, I'm not sure how I would tackle that other than, like Nathan said, setting up some restrictions on maybe the wireless or something of that nature to kind of control it. But yeah, it's tough.
I don't want to go too far into this, but at least I can say looking back at it now, I think that when I was younger, I probably played video games a little bit too much. So at least in that sense, I know what to look for in him. And it was getting
I
in the way
still
of my-
play video games too much.
Yeah, I do too, but I at least know that I'm doing it. Whereas back then, I just didn't. I don't care what grades I get in school.
I'm having cereal for dinner too. No.
Exactly. Leave my room, Ma. Bye.
Wait, it's not acceptable to have cereal for dinner?
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna knock it.
Okay.
But you know, I think it's just being mindful. You know what I mean? Just not being so totalitarian about it, but at the very least, being able to recognize, hey, maybe it's not good that my kid only plays the Switch for 8 hours a day and never goes outside or talks to kids or whatever. So, but that's up to the parents, and there's some parents out there who probably just don't care, unfortunately.
Sure. It's true. All right, so I think we've covered enough here.
This was kind of depressing.
Yeah, no, let's end it on a somber note. So before we say adieu, Nathan, where can people connect with you and anything else you might be up to?
You can connect with me over on Twitter at Voiced by Nathan. On the Discord, I'm also Voiced by Nathan on there. Stop by, say hello, and that'll be fun. I posted earlier. Said earlier at the top of the show. I posted an episode of That's Entertaining for February. Check that out. Again, please watch The Umbrella Academy. It's a great show. And
I'm going to.
while you're at it, we do a little monthly show with some guy named Donnie, called The State of the Xbox Empire. So there is one that was recently released. Next month we'll have another one. So watch that. Listen to that. It's not on video. Listen to that.
It's not on demand. So you can find me at PSVG Kevin on Twitter. Link up with us on the Discord if you'd like to play some games with us, because we apparently do that from now and then, like Anthem, like we're actually playing a game. So come join us over there. Head over to psvg.blog for all of the things PSVG Podcast Network related, including all the different shows and amazing things we do, as well as Patreon. Lucas, even though you told me not to ask you, I'm going to ask you, where can people find you and what else you're up to, sir?
You can find me
In a van down by the river.
That's right. Broadcasting live. You can find me on Discord. That's really all I don't use Twitter. I don't know what it is about Twitter, but I don't use it. Join a PSVG Discord. You can find me on Fluxtapose as well. I do a podcast, which is basically the goofiness that we just ran into. Is basically that, but for 2 hours, or sometimes in an hour and a half. If we're
sometimes more than 2 hours.
Yes. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And here, as always, you're stuck with me. I'm never leaving.
That's fine. I'm okay with it. We get into trouble. People seem to like it for some odd reason, so I'm okay with it.
Good.
That wraps up the show for this week, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in and telling a friend, hopefully, and we appreciate you. But more importantly, more than anything else,
I do have one more thing to say.
No.
The Costco Xbox is no longer on sale.
Oh, throwback. So yes, that Costco Xbox One X deal is no longer. You can't get the 2 controllers in Fallout 76 for free. Sorry.
One more thing about Apex Legends. Just one more thing. I just thought of it.
I'm going to ping the end of this show right now so that you guys know where we're going here. And thank you, everybody. But remember, as always, to never stop gaming unless it's Apex Legends.
This has been a PSVG production. Any music, sound effects, or the like is owned by their respective copyright holders. No infringement is intended. The views expressed in this production are those of the individual contributor and may not necessarily reflect PSVG. This production may not be repurposed, reused, or redistributed without the express written consent of PSVG. PSVG is powered by patrons at patreon.com/PSVG. Become a patron to get special perks, including access to exclusive content.